She joked, "Don't be so dramatic, it's just a work husband," about her coworker. I replied, "Professionalism is key." What she didn't expect was me becoming friends with her work husband's actual wife at the company picnic. The information we exchanged led to 2 breakups. The term work husband is a funny little piece of corporate jargon, isn't it? It's meant to be cute. It's a harmless, platonic stand-in for the real thing, a person you share spreadsheets and inside jokes with instead of a mortgage and a life. It's supposed to be a joke, but the thing about jokes is that they're only funny when everyone is in on them. For the last year of our relationship, I was not in on the joke. My girlfriend, Kate, and her work husband, a guy named Alex, were inseparable. Alex was the star of every story she told about her day at the marketing agency. Alex and I totally nailed the presentation today. You won't believe the hilarious thing Alex said in the meeting. Alex brought me a coffee this morning. He just gets my caffeine needs. He wasn't just a coworker. He was a main character in the story of her life. And my role was gradually being downgraded to a supporting cast member, maybe even an extra. At first, I tried to be the cool, understanding boyfriend. I'm a software developer. My world is logical. It's code and syntax and clear, definable problems. I understood teamwork. I understood friendship. But this felt different. It was the little things. It was the way her phone would light up at 10 o'clock at night with a text from him, and she'd smile at the screen with a look she used to reserve for me. It was the way she'd mention an inside joke between them, then stop and say, "Oh, never mind, you had to be there." I was increasingly not there. The red flags weren't just popping up, they were holding a full-blown parade. For my birthday, Kate got me a very nice, very sensible sweater. It was a great gift, practical, thoughtful. Alex, I found out later, got her a rare, first edition copy of her favorite book, something she'd mentioned wanting once, months ago. He had remembered a passing comment. I had apparently become the guy who receives sensible sweaters. The contrast was not lost on me. I decided to address it. I chose my moment carefully. One evening when we were just relaxing on the couch, I didn't accuse, I didn't yell, I just asked. "Hey," I said, my voice calm. "Can we talk about Alex for a second? It feels like you guys are really close. Sometimes it feels like a little too close." The shift in her demeanor was immediate. Her relaxed posture stiffened. The warm smile was replaced by a look of weary condescension. It was the look of a patient teacher dealing with a particularly slow student. "Oh, this again?" she sighed. "I can't believe you're bringing this up. He's my friend. He's my work husband. It's a joke. It's what people say." "I get that," I said, trying to keep things level. "But the constant texting late at night, the fact that you seem to share more with him about your day than you do with me, it just feels like it's crossing a line." And then she said it. The line that became the title of this whole sorry saga. She laughed, a short, sharp, humorless sound, and said, "Don't be so dramatic, it's just a work husband. The real issue here is that you're letting your insecurities get the best of you. It's not an attractive quality." My insecurity. There it was. The classic get-out-of-jail-free card. My valid concerns about her emotional affair were not, in fact, valid. They were a symptom of my own personal failing. My gut feeling wasn't a response to her behavior. It was a flaw in my character. It was a brilliant, manipulative move, and it made something in my logical, code-driven brain click into place. I looked at her, at this woman I loved, who was so casually dismissing my feelings and turning my own mind against me. The hurt was there, but it was being rapidly overtaken by a cold, analytical clarity. She had defined the terms of the problem, my insecurity. Fine. If this was a problem to be solved, I would solve it. If this was a bug in our relationship, I would debug it. "You're right," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Professionalism is key." She blinked, surprised by my sudden agreement. She expected a fight. She expected me to be, as she put it, dramatic. My calm capitulation threw her off script. "Exactly," she said a little uncertainly. "It's all just professional." "I get it now," I said, and I did. I got that arguing with her was pointless. Arguing with someone who refuses to acknowledge the premise of your argument is like trying to debug code that isn't there. From that moment on, I stopped arguing. I stopped complaining. I just started observing. I became a data analyst in my own relationship. The company picnic was the perfect opportunity for data collection. It was an annual event, a big, family-friendly affair held in a sprawling park. Kate had insisted I come. "It'll be good for you," she'd said. "You can see how normal and professional everything is. It will help with your, What she meant was that she wanted to parade me around. She wanted to use me as a prop, as living proof that her home life was stable and that her relationship with Alex was completely above board. I was to be the smiling, secure boyfriend, a walking testament to her innocence. I agreed to go, not for her reasons, but for my own. I wanted to see them in their natural habitat. I wanted to observe the data points in real time. The picnic was exactly as excruciating as I'd imagined. Forced fun, lukewarm hot dogs, and a mandatory volleyball tournament where marketing executives tried to relive their glory days. I watched Kate and Alex, and it was just as I'd suspected. It wasn't one big, obvious thing. It was 1,000 tiny ones. The way he'd put his hand on the small of her back to guide her through a crowd. The way they'd share a look across the field that conveyed a whole conversation. The way she'd laugh at his jokes. A genuine, uninhibited laugh that I hadn't heard from her in months. They moved around each other with an easy, practiced intimacy that screamed familiarity. They were a team, and I was a spectator. I felt a familiar pang of that insecurity she was so concerned about. But as I watched them, I realized it wasn't insecurity at all. It was certainty. I was certain I was being played for a fool. I needed a drink. I wandered over to the large, shaded pavilion where the drinks were set up. As I was filling a cup with lemonade, a woman standing next to me sighed. I swear, if I have to hear the phrase synergistic branding one more time, I'm going to lose my mind, she said to no one in particular. I chuckled. Tell me about it. I think my brain is starting to melt. She smiled, a tired but genuine smile. She looked to be about my age with kind eyes and a weary expression that I recognized because I was wearing the exact same one. You're a +1 too, huh? She asked. Is it that obvious? It's the look, she said. A unique blend of boredom and existential dread. I'm Emily, by the way. My husband is Alex. My heart stopped for a beat. Alex. Her husband was Alex. I looked at her again, really looked at her, and remembered seeing her picture once, in a small frame on Alex's desk during a video call Kate had taken from home. This was her, the actual wife of the work husband, the other person who was not in on the joke. I'm Ben, I said, shaking her hand. My girlfriend is Kate. A flicker of recognition crossed her face. Oh, Kate, of course. Alex talks about her all the time, says she's the only one at the agency who gets it. The dream team, he calls them. That's them, all right? I said, my voice carefully neutral. They seem to work really well together, always putting in the late hours on those big projects. I was fishing. It was a shot in the dark, a simple line of code to test a theory. And her response was the result that changed everything. She frowned slightly. Late hours? That's funny. He's been telling me he's been leaving at 5 on the dot every day for the last 2 months to go to the gym before coming home. He said work has been really slow. Boom. There it was. The first critical piece of contradictory data. The first undeniable proof that the narrative I was being fed was a complete fabrication. Our eyes met, and in that moment there was a silent mutual understanding. We were two separate people, living in two separate realities, being told two separate sets of lies by the same two people. The gym, I said, letting out a slow breath. Right. He looks like he's in great shape. We stood there for a moment in the awkward silence, the cheerful sounds of the picnic fading into the background. We both knew what was happening. We were two lonely planets that had just discovered they were orbiting the same deceitful sun. Well, Emily said, forcing a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was really nice to meet you, Ben. You too, Emily, I said. Hey, Kate and I have been meaning to have you and Alex over for dinner sometime. Maybe I could get your number, and we can coordinate? It was a perfectly plausible, perfectly normal suggestion. But we both knew it was a lie. It was a cover story. It was the only way we could exchange contact information without raising suspicion. She gave me her number, I gave her mine, and we went our separate ways, back to our respective roles as the happy, supportive partners. But the game had changed. I wasn't just collecting data anymore. I had found a collaborator. I waited 2 days. I didn't want to seem too eager. Then I texted her. Hey Emily, Ben here. That was some picnic, huh? Up for a coffee sometime this week? I think we might have some project notes to compare. Her reply was almost instant. I'd like that. When and where? We met at a quiet, anonymous coffee shop halfway between our respective workplaces. The awkwardness was gone, replaced by a grim sense of purpose. We were two auditors about to go over the books of a very corrupt company. The conversation was methodical, almost clinical. We weren't there to cry or to rage. We were there to compare facts. Okay, I started, pulling out a small notebook. I felt like a detective. Last month, on the 15th, Kate told me she and Alex had to fly to Chicago for a one-day last-minute client presentation, a red-eye flight back the next morning. Emily consulted her own mental notebook. That's impossible, she said, shaking her head. Alex told me he was going on a solo overnight fishing trip to a lake in Wisconsin that weekend. To de-stress, he even sent me a picture of a fish. Let me guess, I said. A stock photo of a largemouth bass? Her eyes widened. How did you know? Because Kate sent me a picture of the Chicago skyline from her hotel room that I later found on a travel blog. We continued like that for an hour. It was a devastating, point-by-point deconstruction of their lies. The late nights at the office were dinners at fancy restaurants. The business trips were weekend getaways. The team-building exercises were concerts and wine tastings. We uncovered a systematic, long-term affair, a whole secret life they had built, funded by our trust and enabled by our willingness to believe their increasingly flimsy excuses. The worst part was the small personal betrayals. Emily told me about a beautiful, antique locket that had belonged to her grandmother, a family heirloom that had gone missing from her jewelry box a few months ago. She had been heartbroken, thinking she had lost it. My blood ran cold. I described the locket that Alex had given Kate for her birthday. The one Kate had told me was a lucky find from a vintage shop. It was the same one. He hadn't just cheated on his wife, he had stolen from her to give a gift to his mistress. That was it for me. This wasn't just about a work husband anymore. This was about a fundamental lack of character, a deep and rotten dishonesty in both of them. So what do we do? Emily asked, her voice quiet but firm. She wasn't crying. Her face was set with a hard, determined anger that mirrored my own. We don't confront them individually, I said, the plan forming in my head. If we do that, they'll just lie. They'll spin it. They'll try to turn us against each other, say we're imagining things, that we're the crazy, insecure ones. They've been working as a team to deceive us, so we have to work as a team to expose them. What do you have in mind? She asked. A final presentation, I said. A performance review. We get all four of us in a room and we present our findings. No yelling, no drama, just the facts. We give them the professionalism they're always talking about. The setup was surprisingly easy. I told Kate that my insecurity was hurting our relationship and that I thought the four of us, me, her, Alex, and Emily, should all go out for dinner to clear the air and prove that we could all be mature adults. Kate loved the idea. She saw it as a victory, as me finally surrendering to her version of reality. She probably thought she'd get a new social media quote out of it. True love is helping your partner overcome their own demons. She convinced a reluctant Alex to agree. We chose a neutral location. A quiet restaurant with a private back room. Emily and I arrived first together. We sat at the table and waited. Kate and Alex walked in a few minutes later, laughing about something. The laughter died on their lips when they saw us sitting there, waiting for them. A united front. The confident swagger drained out of them, replaced by a look of dawning horror. They had walked into a trap. We didn't raise our voices. We didn't make accusations. We just presented the data. I started. On May 15th, I began, my voice as steady as a line of code. Kate, you told me you were flying to Chicago. Alex, you told Emily you were in Wisconsin. In reality, you were both checked into the St. Regis Hotel in Aspen. We have the credit card statement. Emily took the next point. On June 3rd, you claimed to be at a late-night brainstorming session. You were actually at a Coldplay concert. Section 104, row B. A friend of mine saw you. She sent me a picture. We went back and forth, laying out the timeline of their affair with cold, dispassionate precision. We detailed the lies, the fake alibis, the stolen locket. With every fact we presented, the color drained further from their faces. They tried to interrupt, to deny, to deflect. This is insane, Kate sputtered. You've been spying on us. This is a violation of our privacy. No, Emily said, her voice like ice. This is a violation of our marriages and our relationships. Privacy is for people who aren't actively lying to their partners. You gave up that right. When we were done, the silence in the room was absolute. They had nothing left to say. Their web of lies had been so thoroughly dismantled that there wasn't a single thread left for them to cling to. I stood up. I believe this performance review is complete, I said, and my professional assessment is that this partnership is terminated, effective immediately. Emily stood up as well. I concur, she said, looking at Alex with nothing but contempt. Pack your things. I want you out of the house by tomorrow. And then we did something they never expected. We turned and we walked out of the room together. We left them sitting there in the wreckage of their own making. Two colleagues who had just been handed the worst performance review of their lives. The aftermath was messy, but it was their mess, not ours. Kate bombarded me with texts and voicemails, a frantic mix of apologies, accusations, and declarations of love. It was all just noise. Alex, apparently, tried to win Emily back, but she filed for divorce the next day. Kate and Alex tried to make a go of it, of course. They had torched their lives for this affair, so they had to at least try to prove it was worth it. But from what I heard through the grapevine, it was a spectacular failure. Their relationship was built on the thrill of secrecy and the stability provided by me and Emily. Once they only had each other, they discovered they didn't actually have much in common besides a shared talent for deceit. The work marriage couldn't survive the harsh reality of actual life. They broke up within 6 months. Emily and I remained friends. We were bonded by the shared, bizarre experience of dismantling our own lives in a coffee shop. We helped each other navigate the messy logistics of our respective breakups. There was never any romance between us. That would have been too complicated, too much of a cliché. We were just two people who had helped each other escape a bad situation. We were allies. About a year later, I was sitting in my new apartment, an apartment that was entirely my own, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't realized I'd been missing. My life was logical again. It was stable. It was mine. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't insecure. I was just a man who had been presented with a problem, a bug in the system. And I had done what I do best. I had gathered the data, identified the error, and written the code to fix it. And the fix was simple. I just had to delete the lines that were causing the crash.